Is there a way to find out if this was not true?
Is there a way to find out is that it's not true? Um, is a good question. Think about that for a second. Okay, so if you're I'm trying to think like if you're a man in a cave and to not be true. Say that again.
Literally anything you believe. Like we did one about gun control. The previous person was just about Christianity is true. Yesterday we did one.
That's the person I walked over.
Yeah, it was Christianity was true.
I might try out one of my. You sound like you'd be a good candidate for me to try out one of my experiments. That has to do with truth. If you're game,
Go for it. Sure.
you want to have a seat right here?
Yeah, I'll play along.
Cool.
Love it.
I'm just gonna switch this out real quick. Have a seat here whenever you're ready. Cool. So my name's David.
Howdy, David.
What was your name again?
Seth.
Seth. S-E-T-H.
S-E-T-H. You got it.
Cool. Good to meet you, Seth.
Egyptian and Hebrew.
Got it. Egyptian, huh?
I'm not Egyptian or Hebrew, but that's where the name would come from.
Okay. Cool. So I have like these experimental line of questioning that I kind of like to play around with, and hopefully you can help me out. And I'm really trying to get better at phrasing these questions, because I suspect a lot of the time that the questions aren't being asked very well by me. So maybe you can help me.
I think they're hard questions, right? It's kind of hard to put them in.
They can be really hard to phrase.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So like the first question would be, so we have this pie chart, and this pie is the total amount of conclusions that you currently hold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What percentage of those conclusions are you convinced are accurate?
All of them.
Okay. So 100% of the conclusions
So I would say 100% of only the objective true ones. So it's almost saying like an infinitely, you could look at it from either way. It's an either infinitely important single slice or it's a full pie. So I would probably think of it, I think it's safer to think of it as an infinitely important small slice, but it's not Yeah, but either one would be valid, right? Because it's an infinite size, so it takes up the whole pie.
Okay. So are you saying that there's not a percentage? Okay, so it kind of sounds like you're saying, and just correct me if I'm not if I'm not accurate about this, but basically, are you saying that there are no conclusions that you currently hold that are false?
So more what I'm trying to say is that if I come to a conclusion, I try not to think of it as something that I can't change my mind on.
Okay. So you're saying that you're open to changing your mind about some of the conclusions that you hold.
And yeah, I would say most of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your definition of true?
So that's a really good question. Um, I would say, well, truth has to be, if something is true, it has to be true regardless of how I feel about it.
Okay.
So we use math a lot in order to observe something that's repeatable, but you have to assign a value to an object in order for the actual object to have a true meaning. So one has to mean something. And so we've decided that one has a meaning, and so we can solve problems and use scientific analysis, but things have to be repeatable. The problem with when we ask, like, what is truth, is that everybody has their own truth. So the problem is
Everybody has their own truth? Is that what you're
everybody seems to have their own truth.
Seems to.
They seem to talk like they have their own truth.
saying? Does everyone have their own truth?
I would say no. No, I'd say
Okay.
there's only, let's say there's only, it's either true or it's false, right?
Okay.
Something has to actually be true or false. So you can feel that 1 is 5, but it's not actually 5. It's 1. But that's because we have to decide to agree on what is the meaning of 1. And if we can't agree on the meaning of 1, then yeah.
Okay. What I'm gathering from what you're saying is if something is true, it's true regardless of what we think about it and how we feel about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be.
And
I think
there
I'm
are
good with that.
some conclusions you hold that you're open to being wrong about. Would that be accurate?
That'd be accurate.
Okay.
That'd be accurate.
So are there some that you're not open to being accurate about or not open to being mistaken about?
Yes, actually, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have an example of one of those?
Yes. So I would say each person has a unique fundamental presupposition that they start with. So for me, that's rather simple. That's God exists and he must be knowable. So for somebody else, it's I do what makes me happy, I do what makes me enjoy life the most. There's, different principles, right, that you can use in order to maximize what information you're willing to keep for yourself. Like if somebody told you, here's a good, maybe a better example. So if you knew that your mother was going to die when you turned 25, would you tell her? So the question becomes, how do you know that it's going to happen? It hasn't happened yet. So each person will kind of think about that. Say somebody comes up to you, right, and they tell you this is what's going to happen. You have no, like Bayes' rule, for instance, would be you'd have to decide what that probability is, whether or not that's true, based on how likely they are to tell you something that's true.
For a predictive claim, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm asking about conclusions you currently hold that you cannot be mistaken about.
Yes.
Do you have an example
So
of one of those?
yeah, so I haven't. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm going around the tree to get there. I do apologize for that. Yeah. So I would say.
It's all right.
So Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. So for perspective, like in order to get there, like you have to accept that you can be wrong. Um, and number two, what does it mean for somebody to come up to you and tell you that they are the truth? So that's a pretty bold statement. We've had, Buddha, he'll come up with his ideas like if you maximize or if you minimize your attachments to this world, you will maximize your peace. That's probably a good way of trying to summarize that. Um, but it still is a model for what is. Man, this is like a hard one to actually like to put in actual words. Because what does it actually mean that um, because then we're actually getting to what is true. But I think we're still on the pie, right? So I at least give you an example of the sliver.
No, I'm asking for
But
a conclusion that you currently hold that you cannot be wrong about.
yeah, that'd be that one.
That Jesus said something?
No. It's that which is true must come from God.
Okay. If something's true, it comes from God?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I would say that's an oversimplification of what Jesus actually said, but yes, I would say that effectively for a talking point, yeah, that is basically what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is like I'm just making an inference here. Are you saying that Jesus is God?
Yes.
Okay.
That
Okay.
would have to follow, right, based on my own reasoning, right? If I'm saying that God must be knowable, and I want to know what truth is, well, this is perfect because Jesus claimed that he was God.
Okay.
So
So we're talking about the God in this conversation. When we say God, you mean Jesus?
and yes, yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So would it be accurate to say that a conclusion that you cannot be mistaken about is that if it's true, it comes from Jesus?
Yep, that's probably a good way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are you arriving to that conclusion?
That's a good question. So back to how do you arrive at your presupposition?
You're
Um,
saying this is a presupposition?
well, my point is that everybody has one presupposition. That would be my position, is that
Okay.
and that you live your life based on one presupposition. But then that every person has a fundamental rule, and that is how they actually all of their fundamental judgments will come down to that specific rule.
Okay.
So
Could somebody be mistaken about their presupposition?
absolutely, totally right.
But you cannot be mistaken about your presupposition. Is that right?
Yes, but I could be wrong. So I could there was a point where I could have been wrong, but if I now know that it's true, and I know what is true, then I'm not wrong.
How do you know this is
But
true?
well, that's because there has to be. Well,
If it's true,
I've
it comes
already
from
decided
Jesus.
that there is a truth, right? So basically, if we were to track this back, there would have been a point in my life where I wouldn't have known what truth was, and then I would have sought out truth, and then I would have eventually discovered what truth was. So now that I have, if what I'm calling the truth,
Mhm.
then I can't be willing to switch on that if I believe that it's truth. The same way you probably shouldn't give up on what you would believe that it's truth if you were totally convinced that it was true,
Okay.
because then it wouldn't be true; it would be arbitrary.
Have you ever been convinced that something's true and found out later that you were mistaken about it?
Absolutely, yeah, many
Okay.
times.
How open are you to that being the case with if it's true it comes from Jesus?
On that particular issue, um, well, that's the one item that I'm not willing to budge on.
Okay.
But like anything in between, in terms of how big something should be, I don't know who to marry, like all sorts of
Yeah.
types of decision, how to pick a girl. I don't.
Why is
So
this conclusion why is this conclusion not able to for you to be mistaken about?
That's a good point. So that I'm not able to. Okay. So maybe I should pick different wording because anybody can be deceived. So maybe I should take it one step further. So my position, if I'm being consistent with my own belief, is that I'm calling the truth that which comes from God, and I believe that God has now indwelt me.
You believe this?
I believe this. Yes.
Are you open to being
So,
mistaken about that?
am I open to being mistaken about that? Well, my whole actual view would fall apart. So I would basically I'd have to go to an atheistic, a totally abandoned state of no truth. I'd have to leave all of my truth to, so I'd have to find an alternative truth, which
What would that mean for you if you found an alternative truth? If you found out that this was not true?
yeah, that's where I'm kind of trying to walk it through in my head, like what would it actually mean? I think I would arrive at what can only be defined as chaos. I don't think it would actually be defined as truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay? So is it possible this is not true?
Is it? No, no. I would say no. It's not possible.
Is there a way to find out if this was not true?
Is there a way to find out is that it's not true? Um, is a good question. Think about that for a second. Okay, so if you're I'm trying to think like the man in the if you're a man in a cave and to not be true. Say that again.
You're convinced that if it's true, it comes from Jesus. And my question is there a way to find out if that's not the case?
Well, you could learn about what's not from Jesus, right?
That would that would be a way to find out if this was not true?
It would be you would it would allow me to discover that which is different from truth, but it wouldn't get me any closer to truth.
I'm curious. Okay, so we'll try a different example so that I can maybe um, demonstrate, I guess, what I'm asking. Like, where's that Tic Tac box?
Did I not put it? Oh, it's on my paper here.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
All right.
So let's say I was convinced there were 20 Tic Tacs in here.
Okay.
Do I have a way to find out if I was wrong about that?
Do you have yeah, you can just count them.
Count them.
Yeah.
And if I counted them and I found out that there were actually 21 in here,
Yeah.
that's a way to find out if I was wrong.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a way to find out if this was wrong? Everything that's true comes from Jesus. Do we have a way to find out if that's wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
What would you have to do? I have to, you'd have to, we'd have to basically prove that the claim is incorrect.
How could we do that?
So we could, we have to evaluate all evidence, and then, but but I have to have there has to be an alternative. So there has to be a number that's in that box. That's the problem that I'm having with this one.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, there is a truth about how many Tic Tacs are in here.
Yeah.
Whether we count them or not,
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of number of Tic Tacs in here. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, because we've decided that
Okay.
numbers have meaning and that Tic Tacs have meaning and that can be described in forms of numbers. So I have to start there.
Okay.
And so.
So truth comes from somewhere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so truth comes from somewhere. How could we find out if truth did not come from Jesus? what process would we take to discover that that's false?
Well, let's see here. Let me try and be fair. Okay, so if I wanted to prove, so the first thing you need to do is you need to establish where the knowledge came from, I would say.
Knowledge?
Um,
What do you mean by knowledge?
well, going back to our original example using Bayes' rule, um, the first bit of information that I receive and then decide to keep as being true. Um, in order to go back and prove that that's wrong, I have to go back to the guy who gave me this, um, what I am claiming is objective. I have to go back to him and ask him for some evidence that it's true. So I would have to, by my own reasoning, go to God to find out if Jesus is telling me the truth. If I'm just following my own
Yeah.
reasoning to its
Why would that?
extreme.
Yeah. Why would that be a reliable way to tell?
Why would that be a reliable way to tell? And so this is where I think you start to get down to the fact that everybody kind of lives in their own reality. Um,
Everyone lives in their own reality?
oh, well, but with their own belief. Maybe I should say that.
Okay.
So for me, I'm starting with the presupposition that there is a God and that I can talk to him and he will, in fact, inform, um, help me understand truth.
If there was no God, do you have a way to tell?
No, no.
You have no way to tell if there's no
No,
God.
you could use, you can create models like for repeatability in terms of like scientific, like science. We can use science to basically tell us quantitatively um, things about truth, or maybe it's not even truth. It's just telling you it's what's repeatable, what is likely to show up again based on what we've described.
So are you saying that this is true or that it's likely?
Oh, I'm saying it's true. Yeah.
Okay. And so help me out. How do we tell if it's false?
Yeah. So that's there is a flaw in my reasoning because I'm basically saying that I think I already said that. I don't want to say that again.
How
Go for it. Say it
how
again.
confident should we be in conclusions that we're using flawed reasoning?
How am I using flawed reasoning? Um,
You said there was a flaw in your reasoning, and I'm curious, how confident should we be in conclusions in which we're using flawed reasoning?
that's a good point. Um, hmm. Well, I guess I shouldn't call it a flaw. It's just because I now accept something as truth. I don't think of it as negotiable. Um, but your line of, if I guess if we're following this, I should, right? You should still continue to be open-minded to a point, and that would allow you to determine if that the belief you're holding is in fact true. And so you don't want to close yourself off, and you always want to be constantly informing yourself in order to make decisions. I like that, but I think the problem there is that then you never know truth. You have to, so like you have to start somewhere.
Okay. You have to start somewhere is a reason for believing this?
I yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
But you should start with an original, right? And you should decide whether or not it's false. But, you know, inform the decision, and then um, if you've arrived at the fact that it's true, then hold on to it. Stop scrutinizing it, you know? But if, I guess I should be fair, because if it's true, then it doesn't matter how much scrutiny I throw at it. It'll still be true.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my whole tower of cards has come folding down, and that which is true can never be. Doesn't matter how much evidence you bring against it, it will still be true. But now we're just talking in theory, though. So I think that then nobody would have something that they hold to with the absolute core of their being, which now means I'm going against my original statement. So no one actually.
All right. You see the side?
So no one actually holds to. No one actually has. No one knows truth. Isn't that where that goes?
Wait, how late are you here till?
Am I being consistent?
Yeah, we'll probably like 6.
Okay.
I feel like
Well,
it's like dark.
We started this conversation
Yeah, cool.
Thanks.
about absolute truth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like maybe we can revisit that. But I think I'm gonna leave it. I think I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry, I overcomplicated that a lot.
no,
but
no, that's fine. Did you have any questions for me
Yeah, what do you think?
about what?
What percentage of the things that you hold would you say are true?
I would probably say a lot less than I think.
A lot less than you think.
Yeah, I'm probably mistaken a lot more than I think I am.
Okay. It's all right. Do you hold to, like, does a certain percent of that pie need to be correct? Or, cause, like, what
Need
happens
to
if
be?
you empty your pie? Like, do you have like a crisis of meaning or something? Like, what happens when you hit 0 and you're wrong about everything?
I could be wrong about everything.
Okay.
Like I'm open to being wrong about anything that I think is true.
Okay. And what would happen if you were wrong about everything? Nothing would happen. You just wake up tomorrow and.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there would be some things, some behaviors I would change if I found out I was wrong about stuff.
Mhm.
Like, if I found out I was wrong about the dangers of bug spray, I might change how much I use it. I hope that I don't have
But
any.
that's not like important in terms of the pie. Maybe
That's
it is
just an
for-
example.
Just okay, but just as an example. But I don't think that if we're, at least the way I'm talking about truth, I don't really care about things that are repeatable. Like, because if you demonstrate to me using like, there's a difference between using science to prove something and using logic. I mean, they're related. Like, one informs the other. Don't get me wrong, but like, we could use science to like verifiably create a model for how bad bug spray is. But at the end of the day, you still have to choose whether or not to use it because of whether or not you're gonna, I don't know, because you look at the cost benefit and all. There's different ways of deciding how to use that based on the scientific information that's provided to you.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah,
unreasonable?
there's better ways than others to find out if something's true or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
science, I think, is like I'm convinced that's one of the better ways than the worst ways. I hope that I don't have any beliefs that I'm not open to being mistaken about.
That's probably good. Well, doesn't that worry you though? Because I guess you're just kind of going through life. I guess you're just open to each day. And I guess that's kind of the perspective, right? Is I'll see what today provides me. Like, I see that as a totally optional. I would say there's two ways to view two ways to wake up in the morning, maybe, is that either you know your purpose or your purpose cannot be known.
Hmm.
So you would say you tend to lean more your purpose cannot be known. It's just like,
I guess it
or
depends
you
on what
make
you
the
mean
purpose.
by purpose. Like, like I had a purpose today, and that was to come out here to this college with my buddy
Yeah.
and talk to awesome folks like you. Like, when I woke up, that was my purpose. My behavior um, was changed based on that purpose. Like, if my purpose wasn't to come out here today, I'd probably behave differently this morning.
Okay. So that decision, that purpose, is not informed by what you um, start with as truth, though.
How do you mean?
So it's okay. Maybe I could come up with an example. Okay, if the truth was that you were put on this planet to water trees, okay, but you decided tomorrow that your purpose was to chop down trees,
Mm-hmm.
then if you woke up with the opinion that you can't know that you're supposed to water the tree, then you might find yourself having purpose in cutting it down.
Mm-hmm. I could find purpose and meaning in cutting trees down.
Well, it could be anything, right? Because you gave your example was, yeah, you said coming here and that was your purpose for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of curious if your purpose could be wrong.
Oh,
If that's
yeah,
what
I guess. I mean, like I said, I'm open to being mistaken about any conclusion I hold.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like I would be worried if I was unable to be mistaken about something. Like, that would worry me.
Mm-hmm.
And that worries me um, about other people's beliefs, because beliefs inform our behavior, and that affects the rest of us. And that's why it's important, I think, to kind of have these conversations and have a good grasp on how we arrive at these conclusions that we have, right?
Yeah.
So, cool,
So
Seth.
definitely, truth is not objective. If I'm following you correctly.
No, I think of truth. If something, I'm agreeing with you in that if something's true, it's true regardless of how I feel about it.
Okay. But you don't have any like truth that you're reserved to.
I don't have any. Well, it's my preference not to have any conclusions I think are true that I'm not open to being mistaken about.
Isn't that a truth?
Is it? I could be mistaken about that too. That's my preference, though.
Yeah, I guess
Like,
so.
preference and truth, I don't think are the same. I mean, I guess you could say it's true that that's my preference, but I hope that I'm open to being mistaken about anything and have good, reliable ways to tell if I'm mistaken. Like, I hope that I am not holding any conclusions that I have no way to tell if I'm wrong about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it's important to be able to tell if I'm wrong, if I think that I'm right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if I can't tell that I'm mistaken, I don't think that I should be very confident in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you had like any group of people, like I've heard this as an example. What would you do if somebody was banging on the door of your house, telling you that the world is going to end or something?
I'd probably call the cops.
Yeah. uh, but before you call the cops, you have to decide whether or not that's true.
I mean, I suppose it could be, but back to probability, it's
But we're not doing probability though. We're doing truth now. So
okay.
this is we're talking sorry, we're talking like fundamentally.
Uh-huh. it could be true that the earth is ending if somebody's banging on my door. Um, I could be mistaken if it was, you know. I would have to do some sort of analysis though and say, is it more likely that the world is ending, or is it more likely that a crazy person is banging on my door?
Yeah.
And based on evidence, I would lean towards somebody who is crazy is banging on my door rather than the world is ending. But I could be wrong.
So then they come in, right?
I hope
They
not.
give you the story, and then you're convinced that the world's
world is
ending.
ending. Uh-huh.
Now that's what you're running with, and somebody comes up to your door and says, "Hey, man, it's time to leave." What do you do? You weigh it again, and then you
This
go.
is
and
after
is that how you make
this is after I'm convinced that the world is ending.
Yeah, yeah. You've now
I
been
mean,
convinced.
if I was convinced that the world was ending, I'm not really sure what I would do. I'd probably start hugging my cat and being like,
But the question is, would you let them inform your decision? Because now you're convinced. Somebody came to you. They've convinced you that the world is ending, and now somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, man, it's time. It's time to
the
get
same
over
person?
that." No, this is somebody totally different.
Oh, sorry, I'm having a hard time following. Like, there's two people?
Yeah, right. Because
Okay.
in this perspective, I started with the assumption that I can be wrong.
Uh-huh.
Somebody comes to me, they say they're right, and I say, "Okay, you're right." We hold that now. But now we have to equally weigh the next amount of evidence. But so in my world, I can actually establish that what they told me is true. In yours, I have to accept it as true, and then when they come in, I have to have a way to measure it. But how do you? I don't know. I don't know where that goes. It's just there's a fun thought experiment.
That was fun.
But
Seth, David, great talking to you.
good stuff, man.
It's really coming down. Do you have something in mind?
Yeah, check out the YouTube channel. You can scan that QR code to take you right to it. Also, if you want to choose one of these puzzle pieces, the idea is you see us out here again and you want to have another conversation, you can earn another puzzle piece. And you can pick one of these. I'm running out of the blue ones, so it would be super cool if you didn't take a blue one.
I guess
But
I'll
if you
take a yellow
definitely
one.
had to have the blue one, it'd be all right. But maybe we'll have more blue ones next time. Yep. So that's the process that we went through.
Yeah.
My
Which I
YouTube,
failed.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, if you reflected,
Mhm.
if you thought maybe a little bit more deeply than normal, then that is
Hold on, lapel mic up.
that is a
I hope I'm not just losing it.
Oh, you got it. Right.
Oh, there you go.
then that's not a fail. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I got you.
cool.
This kind of
So
explains the process. It's a cheat sheet, so if you ever want to ask other people about their beliefs, kind of give you the rundown of kind of what he ran through.
Uh huh.
And you can also check out the website. There's more information available.
Very cool.
cool.
Well, maybe you can come back and ask me about my beliefs. Because I don't believe anything to be true.
Which I actually prefer that. I think, not prefer, but I think if you're being consistent, that's where you need to be.
Yeah,
So I don't think somewhere in between works.
Yeah. There's no way for me to know that anything is true because I have to view the world through my subjective experience, which we know our senses are flawed.
Right. There
Okay.
I'm convinced there is an absolute truth, but I'm not convinced that any of us has access to that.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know if
Does
I
that
could
clear it
ever-
So
up?
yeah, and so I would push back and I would say that if you can't arrive at that which is true, it's useless.
Ooh, why not?
Useless.
Why?
Yeah, you could. Well, I'll let you ask the why. Sure,
Okay, so
go for it.
if you knew, sorry, okay, so if the truth was, let's see how I could kind of put this in
The
perspective.
truth, or what
Um,
I'm convinced is true.
Well, you said you can't know what's true, right?
Um,
Or you said that there could be a truth, but you can't absolutely know. Or no, sorry. Say that again.
I would
Maybe-
say you can't absolutely.
my
know.
my position is there is an absolute truth,
Okay.
but I'm not convinced that I have access to it because of my perceptions, my biases, my limitations.
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
so,
why I'm saying I would prefer to be open and not hold any conclusions that I can't be wrong about.
Yeah.
And if
But then you're
If-
wrong about everything, right?
not necessarily
But you can't. You just said that you can't actually get to the truth,
to absolute truth.
to absolute truth.
Yeah.
The goal is to
So-
get closer, right?
As close I
As
would
close as you can.
Yeah,
as
so
I
like
would
an
prefer to
example-
get as close to absolute truth as I can.
It doesn't. But you don't know, right, where it is.
Right.
It
That's
could
why
be with 360
that's why I'm open to being
degrees.
mistaken.
Yeah, so
Okay.
like my example would be like, for instance, like back in the old time, right? They used to think about like the four elements of disease, like that's how you got sick, right?
Yeah.
And then they went to like bloodletting, which was maybe a little bit more accurate than the four elements. And then we got like germ theory, which is more accurate. But like, is any of that true? I don't know. They all work, but like as we progress, right, we build more accurate models of reality that helps us to better survive, right? So like it then enabled us to like make vaccines, for example. Now like whether or not the vaccines work for the reasons that we think they work,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, right? I don't know if that's true or not. But what I do know is it works better than bloodletting.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say that works for like most things because they're created by people.
Yeah, is there anything else? But
Yeah. That's a good question. So
I don't think Earth was created by people.
well, I mean, there's always that possibility. I mean, we're brain in the vat.
yeah, maybe we're
Yeah.
like in,
This is
But
my
that-
subjective
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
right?
and I guess we just don't know, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But
that's
for
my
that
position.
which
I
we
don't know.
observe,
Yeah.
we can use models and we can look in the past, and so that would work for that. But if I like was stranded on a boat and one day, or actually, let's just say it, I woke up in a box of nothing, right? And somebody gave me,
Well, first we have to define what you mean by nothing.
well,
It's like a box of
and
something.
to be fair,
And
yes,
then I'm
you
like-
do have to. You always start with presupposition, and that's also
Yeah,
my
yeah.
argument, right? Is that you always start with presupposition. So let's just pretend that somehow you couldn't, and that we're in an empty space, and it's just your decisions and my decisions, and there's a wrench, but you can't know that it's a wrench, right? So that's, and my maybe I'm oversimplifying, but I think that's where you guys are, is that you can arrive at like a way to use the wrench, and maybe
Sure.
maybe that's close to like what it's for. But my position is like, who cares what you use the wrench for if it's not a wrench?
Who cares what you use the wrench for in
Yeah.
astronomy?
Like,
you could
because
use the
you could
wrench
use
for
it-
other things. Like you could
Yeah,
use the hammer.
I mean-
yeah, sure. No, that's what I'm saying too. Right?
Okay.
Like you could use the wrench. Like it doesn't even matter what you could use the object, right? And be like, it can hammer.
Mhm.
It can like I could use it as a weapon, right? But like what it is, I don't know. But it does these things. But then I might discover one day that I can use it to turn these things, and it works better for that, right? And then I find another tool that works better for hammering things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of the thing is like, yeah, it'll totally work, right? And
Yeah.
Like what it is, I have no idea.
Exactly. So most people are more concerned with what do I do with it,
Yeah.
instead of what it is.
Right.
And I would say you can know what it is. So I of course start with presupposition.
That you can know what it is.
But
Yeah.
you can know what it is.
Interesting. All right, man. Well, it was
Yep.
nice chatting to you. I don't want to hold up your time if you want to go. But
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
yeah. Did it make you think?
It did. Yeah. I was like,
that's
man,
what we want.
I know what I'm trying to say, but I know I'm not saying this right.
Yeah.
So-
Is it important to be able to articulate what you're thinking?
Oh yeah, of course. Objectively.
Again, you can scan that QR code. It'll take you right to the YouTube channel.
All right.
Um,
Well, I
and-
can just find it.
Yeah, that's right.
well, that's
All right,
different.
well-
It's different.
Oh, it's different.
Yeah. That on there is not my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is kind of like the person that ran with this method. He called it street epistemology, Anthony Metabosco. And then there's like a group of us that each kind of have our own YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And he's sound epistemology, so that's where this will go. And actually, I'm creating a channel, so eventually this same video will go on my channel. I just haven't created a channel yet.
Yeah. So the QR code will take you to the YouTube channel. That's my expression of the process, which is street epistemology.
I've always wanted to get a table and add, and maybe I'll just do it at some point. I actually
Just
do
take
make
that.
a reason.
And then just follow it
Yeah.
when you're talking to somebody. And it's basically what we did. And then eventually you'll like learn and get better at it. And it'll be yeah.
But just to like ask college kids, a question that always fascinates me is who is God? Tell me, right? So not well, who is God, and therefore you should tell me. So I'd like to do that at some point.
God is
So
Which God?
Yeah.
Jesus?
yeah, well that's so it's open ended, right? You can answer whatever you like, but and that's actually I thought you guys were doing kind of like I don't know, getting people to be more expressive about their own opinions, because that's my position is that like if you hold to a belief, you should inform others about said belief, because again,
Oh,
starting
okay.
presuppositions that you believe that something's true, and somebody else would need to know that.
See, my goal is for people to explore the relationship between the quality of the reasons that they're using and the confidence that they have in a conclusion.
Okay, so that's much deeper.
Yeah.
'cause
So like,
imagine
if you-
somebody was sharing, like somebody believed the Earth was flat, right? And
Yeah.
like you used your idea where they should spread that idea. Would you want them to do that? Like if you know that the Earth is not flat, or would you want them to have better reasons to know that the Earth is flat before they spread the belief?
But I think you can do both at the same time. So I would say, I would want things in place so that they could better inform their decision.
Yeah.
Education, whatever,
Yeah,
people,
right.
parents. I would hope for a better. There's tons of different things. But I could simultaneously want that if they do hold to their position, that they would inform others. Because, like, I don't know, say this guy who's cooking with his.
Family? Rent?
Yeah, and he could very well benefit from you. Maybe educating isn't quite the right word, because that's not quite what I'm talking about, but informing at least
Yeah.
some amount
Well,
about
if-
a better person.
if somebody was convinced the Earth was flat
yeah,
and they said it's because of my presupposition, would that be a good reason to believe that the Earth is flat?
it's because of my presupposition. Would be a good. No, definitely
So using presuppositions would you say that's, like, how reliable is that for a reason to believe stuff?
not. But so yes, I like where this is going, but I would push on the fact that you should have one presupposition, not more than. So if that's your presupposition, that's good. I'm probably going to say that's okay. Like if your meaning of existence comes from the fact that the Earth is flat, I don't know why that would happen, but if it did, you should make a big deal about it.
Okay,
So-
how about this? If I'm racist,
Yeah.
and I'm racist because I have a presupposition, would that be okay with you?
So how's it going?
I'm looking for Lindenberg for a library.
Oh, the Lindenberg Library? I right
It's
there.
that one, right?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's super
Is it
awesome.
famous? Okay.
Yeah, it's super awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I'm still gonna say yes. Yeah,
You'd be okay with that?
yes, because it will. There's a couple reasons why, but if I'm just analyzing the circumstance, that is the fastest way for you to get in jail.
How's it going?
So,
Guys?
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's the fastest way for you to be punished.
yeah.
Yeah?
Interesting.
Can we do it like
Okay.
Can we do it together? Or like
Sure. It's better if it's like one.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
That was
Take
great.
care. That was great.
Appreciate it, man.
See you later.
On their own reasoning. So it can complicate it if, like, you're influencing other people's, reason for their belief. But we can certainly
Wait,
try
yeah.
it.
Wait, what kind of like
Any belief that you want.
Like
so,
ever?
like, huh?
just like ever?
Can I
Anything that you believe to be true, like the deeper.
Oh, I have one. I have one.
can I try something?
Do you want to
Can I try it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or do you want to do it?
I was gonna do.
You do it, okay.
The last one, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Cool. You have a belief?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, you don't mind being filmed and stuff?
No, I don't care.
Awesome. Love it. All right. Cool.
I gotta think of a. No, I have a.
You're gonna think of a belief? Okay.
Take my backpack off.
Oh yeah, certainly you could set it wherever. You want to sit in this chair over here. I'll give you a lapel mic. You can either clip it or there's a little magnet thing if you just want to put it there.